Welcome back to the Paradinks podcast. This is part 2 of a really long recording where we talked about how we got creative. Enjoy. I really didn't like school. I did good in it just so that teachers and administrators wouldn't bother me. But I really didn't enjoy, the process of going to school.
Yeah.
And so I would find little ways to rebel in, an English class. So then if we fast forward to, maybe my senior year, I had, the toughest English teacher in the school. He was that teacher that everyone's always kind of a little afraid of. You know, and he'd harass kids in the hallway, too.
Oh,
He'd
God.
be like, hey, where's your hall pass? And blah, blah,
Oh,
blah.
my God.
He was always joking
Yeah.
a little, but, because you're a teenager and you're not,
Authority.
fully yourself yet. You know,
Yeah.
you're still kind of, subjugated to whatever adults say.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think everyone took him a bit serious, but I never had that fear of him. I was always just kind of this guy's funny. He makes me laugh. He doesn't follow the rules. I mean, similarly, he followed them enough. But anyways, this is getting long-winded. I refused to read one of the books that was a required reading in a class. And so he was like, okay, you don't have to read that book. And I was like, yes, I win. And he was like, but instead you have to read Catch-22 and you have to write a report about every chapter of the book or something.
Wow.
He gave me my own separate little assignment that I had to do on my own that was probably technically more work.
Yeah.
But at this point I didn't mind because I got so engrossed in that story. And so I just I think through a lot of my schooling learned you can do kind of whatever the hell you want in life. Because as I would push and find my own little ways to not do the things I didn't enjoy in school, I found ways to kind of not do them and do something else. So I avoided punishment and still learned something.
You're an inspiration. Although kids these days don't have to. Did I just say that? They're on their phone when they're in school, so it doesn't.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue.
But then going out, so I was raised in the States, or born and raised in the United States. And so once you turned 18 back then, you would get kicked off your parents' health insurance. And there's no, public health insurance then. And health care is expensive down there, right? So you could easily go broke. And so the only way I could stand my parents' health insurance was to go to school. Or go to college and continue an education. So I just signed up for bullshit classes at school, right? I took a I took a course called Study Skills. There was a college level course called Study Skills where someone basically taught you how you should study.
Wow.
For your classes.
Was this in the States still?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So you went to college there first?
Yep. I did a year of community college.
Okay.
Because that was the cheapest
Yeah.
thing. Again, this was all money driven in a way. Because again, I had no desire to be in school. I was making pizzas and partying with friends and, being a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but one of the courses I took was a film course. And it was in that course where suddenly things really clicked with me. And I was like, oh my God, this is English class. But you get to watch and listen to everything instead of read it. Because all the things were the same, right? Yeah. He started explaining visual metaphors and stuff. And I was like, these are all the English things we were learning. This is the same thing. You're telling a story. And you would have to write a script. So you still write the story. But then you get to go out and do it with photos or moving pictures, right? If you want to go back to the old-timey terms. That got me looking into filmmaking. But I didn't want to go to LA or New York because I didn't enjoy LA a few times I've been there. It was just too smoggy, too crowded. I was like, no. Plus, I was like, everybody in the United States goes to either one of those two cities to learn filmmaking. So I was like, you're going to have so much competition. Everybody there is a filmmaker or an actor or whatever. They're all in that same business, right? And then it wasn't until looking around a little more and discovered Vancouver had film courses. And there was a huge film scene up there and a lot of actually massive motion pictures shot in Vancouver. And I was like, huh, cool. My dad's Canadian, so I could claim my citizenship off of him. Mm-hmm. I was like, cool. I can just easily hop over here and go up to Canada, and they have health insurance and all that. So, like, it was kind of a weird economic driven and like kind of rebelling against
Yeah.
whatever society wanted me to do that drove me into this creative area, because I've never honestly felt like an artist or a creative or anything. Like, I kind of cringe at that word even today. If someone's like, oh, you're like an artist or you're artistic, it makes me think of, I don't know, some kind of failure in a way. Like, it's this weird mental thing that I have that I'm not sure where it comes from exactly. But I've always felt like you needed a different plan. Like, arts aren't a plan A.
Yeah.
And it's really taken me until like the past few years to be able to embrace that more and say, okay, sure, what I do can be construed as art. And that's okay. And I can make a living at this because there's people who value and need what I do. I think I have a very sort of cut and dry approach to it when it happens in my mind, though, because I'm thinking more about, well, if it's something I'm pre-planning for a client, then I'm thinking about what do they want this to do or communicate, right? Like, I think of a lot of my photography and video work as visual communication. And
so, but let's rewind a little bit. You went to, you came up to Canada to go to school.
yeah,
For film.
yes, filmmaking.
Filmmaking, not exactly photography, which you are more doing. You're doing that now more so than filmmaking, but you're still doing filmmaking a little bit. There's a lot more in between there.
Yeah, there is. So is your question about how I sort of switched from...
Yeah, like fill in the blanks of going from coming here to go to school to what that last story was just about, basically. So
Yeah. Well, like, going to school, we never had the technology at home for me to be able to really experiment with my own filmmaking. Like, I didn't have computers we could edit on. I didn't have a video camera that could plug into the computer that I could do stuff with. So naturally, I started with a lot of photography and still frames.
So this is before school then? Coming to Canada?
Yeah, this was just personal stuff and learning like
so you were
Photoshop and how to manipulate images and play with that. And then, but I wanted filmmaking, right? Because that was big and sexy and glossy. Like, that's the coolest storytelling to me because it's so impactful and immersive, right? Like, anyhows, yeah. So, but then going to school, I think I realized how it's so much bloody work making a film.
Yeah.
Like, and it's practically impossible making a film on your own.
Yeah.
You need to have teams of people. And inherently, once you start bringing on more people and more people, like, you get less and less of your vision as an individual. Right? Which is okay. I mean, that's part of the fun of the process. But I found myself just kind of, I guess, becoming more and more disenfranchised with that. And it wasn't as cool. It became a bit more of a headache. It became work in my mind, right? Here I was trying to sort of run away from work and not have a life where I'm like feeling worked, so to say. I don't know how else to put it, right? But well, not necessarily overworked, but just I want to feel like I'm expressing something of my own.
Yeah, you don't want to
in what I'm doing.
Yeah, you don't want it to feel like work.
Yeah, and so I found myself in the props department through a series of events, and it was great. You made great money. You got around cool stuff, but there was no real personal expression.
No, it's nothing to do with you. You're like a walking, a headless person, just grabbing shit that the film needs.
It felt very much like a 9-to-5 where you're like, okay, take this, file it there, stamp this on it. It was all very routine. And so that became sort of boring in my mind, right? And, I branched out and I started doing my own filmmaking with my friend who's now my business partner, Brian Russell. And we started off doing wedding films together, and that was great fun because now I got to be behind the camera and I got to choose the shots and interact with people. But again, once you're doing that, like you're telling the same story in a way. Like
Yeah.
it's a wedding. And, you know, I was always trying to think of how can we shoot this in different ways, but people don't want that. They want sort of like what they saw their friend's wedding film look like and stuff. So it was like, then that became not very creatively invigorating, and then I moved into doing some more client work for like businesses, for their websites or their social media, and again that was fun, but I felt like I never got to explore many ideas on my own there. It was still very driven by business and what the business wanted, and I think photography came in like because during a lot of those shoots of my own we would do, like when you're doing the weddings or the freelance stuff for businesses, you take a lot of photos because you're trying to figure out where you're going to do the video shot. So it's easy to sort of take a still picture and then communicate that with your team or the client and say, so if we shoot it like this or like that. So it got me practicing a lot of photography and understanding angles and compositions. But it wasn't until going and traveling and photographing my own travels and trying to shoot them like a film, but only using still images.
Yeah, beautiful.
You know?
I love your travel. Like,
and I started studying in filmmaking. Like, I've hated this trend where filmmaking has gone, where we do lots of quick edits and cuts to communicate information. And I started looking back to some of the older filmmakers, like when we first started filmmaking in the 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever. Especially, I think like the great example that everyone uses is, I can't remember his first name. It's Kurosawa, a Japanese filmmaker. He was known for incredible deep staging, is what we call it, where you have action happening in the foreground, the midground, and the background. So you have 3 layers of information being told throughout your frame. And by studying a lot of his work, I think that informed a lot of my photography, where I was like, okay, I can't like shoot 4 shots and stitch them together into one 30-second clip to communicate information. But how can I condense all of that into one single frame that's visually interesting with like good light, with something in the foreground, a subject in the midground, and something happening in the background, and have all of that communicate an entire scene or give you some kind of a feeling, right? And combining that with my love for just like really nice lighting, like I still can't. I need like good lighting in my images. If an image if it's not well exposed, like I don't like it.
Yeah.
You know, no matter how cool or interesting anything else is, even like silhouette stuff and all that, I'm like, no, like I want it exposed well.
Yeah. Easier to work with post.
Well, that, but also I feel like, again, if I have one frame to communicate all this information, don't waste a single pixel of it, or don't waste a single grain of the frame, right? Like, use everything to communicate something. You know, the inherent funny loss of that is that I shoot so much when I go shoot.
Yeah.
So, like, I almost overshoot everything, but I think that's what gets me to the place where I finally get those few frames that really communicate what I say. And I also like to introduce some spontaneity to stuff, because I think that's something that I lost a lot of in, like in the video work. Everything was so planned.
Right.
There was no ability to sort of show up and say, we'll shoot whatever we get, you know. But I think with the photography, the technology and the inherent nature of the medium, it allows you to just shoot what's available, and you can still come out with something that's incredible.
And you do.
But working with people was terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, especially putting people in front of the lens. For those who don't know, I guess I now focus a lot on portraiture and photographing people, which was something I never thought I would have ever been focused on, because that's what absolutely terrified me. It's almost like, it's why I didn't want to get into weddings at first. Like I started editing before I ever shot.
But you're a people person, and you're super charming, and you might be riddled with anxiety, and nobody would know it.
but
Well,
I am, right?
well,
And that's
I'm just saying, you put
Yeah.
on a great front, and like you're easy to
Well,
get
thank
along
you.
with. So, I mean,
no. But
our
I think
first
you
photo
get it.
shoot was the best photo
Oh,
shoot.
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was one of my favorites too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. So I think a lot of my creative pursuits have come from just wanting to really, I guess, explore just what I'm capable of in a way. Right? Like not wanting to take the easy route, not
Still
wanting
pushing it.
to yeah, and I don't know exactly where that comes from. But it's a huge part of me. Like
Yes.
I always have this weird thing in my mind where if everyone's going to the right, I'm like, oh, what's on the left? You know? Like,
Yeah.
which I find hilarious. But I don't know, you just make it interesting. And I think, too, there's an inherent novelty to that other people find intriguing because they all went to the right and I went left.
Well, and that's the thing that I think that a lot of us would have liked to have done, had probably imagined doing it tons of times, and still just getting that fear of not being accepted by people. Like, it took me a really, really, really long time to not care what people think, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you're younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
100%.
tough. So like I said before, that's inspiring, and I hope that I don't know what it's like now. I feel like anybody can do whatever they want in school. But, you know, I mean, like for anybody still anywhere,
Yeah.
your story's inspiring. And I laugh because I'm the opposite of that. Like growing up feeling like on a really tight leash and strict and scared of authority. And I think that's also what makes me a good model, is that I'm very disciplined. Now I try not to be, but I can be very disciplined.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the best word for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just scared.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of scary putting yourself out there. You know, and I think that's what I realized I'm doing that others aren't in a way. Like,
Yeah.
what I do is, it's very personal stuff, right? Because it's my interpretation. It's my workflow. It's my, promise to the client that I'll do what they want or what they need. Like everything comes back to me.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's kind of terrifying, but at the same point, once you realize no one really cares that it's you, like it's not personal to them.
No.
To them, it's just another photo. Like you're just another photographer, you know, like at first I think that's it feels a little demeaning.
Yeah.
But once you get into it, you realize the power of it and you go, right. Like it kind of doesn't matter if I mess this up because I'll still get paid, if you structure your deals right. Like, I'll still get paid or I'll still have a fun time. I'll still get to make the cool photos that I see and I'll make the things that I'm proud of. And if they don't like them, okay, it means maybe I misunderstood part of their brief or their mission or their whatever. And I've got something to learn there about how to interact with a person. Yeah, and communicate. But I didn't do anything wrong. And what I created wasn't like not awesome and beautiful or cool or, however I feel about it. That's still valid. Like I'm still allowed to have my own feelings about my work despite what anyone else thinks about it. I just think at the end of the day, you'd hope everybody loves it. And I think that's the biggest hurdle to get over when you want to like photograph other people or work for others, photographing what they do or them.
And I think that's why I hate that idea of taking photos of people, because that, like I said before, struggled in the past But I lost my train of thought. I lost my train of thought.
Working with people.
Yeah, is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel better taking photos of nature and bugs and stuff. Like, it takes the weight off your shoulder. It's you're not going to disappoint anybody except yourself.
Yeah.
So it makes me feel a lot better about photos I take.
Yeah.
I'm not taking photos of other people.
And you still take beautiful photos.
Thanks.
Even of others. You take some great ones of me.
You're still photogenic, though. I think I'm done.
Yeah. All right. That's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening.
Lose my thoughts.
We'll see you again next week.